Welcome to Cast Your Bets, the Offshore Gaming Association podcast with your host, Jim Quinn of OSGA.com and J.R. O'Donnell of Red Zone Sports. Let's get started.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Cast Your Bets, a weekly podcast where we try to tell you a little bit about how to bet some sports, how to cash some tickets, where to play, and how to go about your business so that at the end of the NFL season, you can end up with some money in your pocket. My name's Jim from OSGA.com, the Offshore Gaming Association, here with my good friend J.R. O'Donnell of Red Zone Sports and Pregame.com. J.R.O., how's it going today?
I'm doing well, my friend. Thank you for the introduction. And how can you not get excited about the NFL this week and the start of the college football bowl season? Let me tell you, these teams jockey for position. There's some great underdogs. There's some nice favorites out there. I can't wait to fatten the listeners up in the NFL, and I certainly can't wait to dive right in to the bowl season as there's 40 games, and we're going to give them some great picks right here on the podcast.
Absolutely, man. Now, last week, your NFL pick was the Seahawks. And the Jags, man, I got to tell you, the Jags are for real. I was really surprised. There's a couple of teams right now that I think are really coming on in the NFL, and I think the Jags are one of them.
Doug Marrone did a nice job with Jacksonville. His Achilles heel was the NFC West with those Seattle Seahawks. Seattle coming off a nice big win the week before, obviously against Philadelphia. And I thought Mr. December, that's right, I thought Mr. December, Russell Wilson, would get the job done. My hat is off to Doug Marrone. I don't have Jacksonville going far, but they certainly were the right side last week. I tell it like it is, and I laid an egg with Seattle as my NFL pick. But this week, I'm not going to lay an egg as I'm coming in two-fisted on the NFL pick this week.
Yeah, and we also have some college football to talk about. I mean, last week we touched on the Army-Navy game on the podcast, and that turned out to be a heck of a football game. I watched that, and, it was snowing, and it's Army-Navy, and, it was fantastic, and, you didn't have any kind of play on that game, and actually I'm glad because it was one of those games I really just enjoyed watching from that perspective. Now we're looking at bowl season coming up here, and, there's 40 bowl games on the board. Frankly, there's so many bowl games. There's 6 bowl games this weekend on Saturday. It's like it's week 15 of the college football season. I don't really understand it, except to figure that they're putting these games out there so folks can bet on them. What are your thoughts, JR, on there's so many of these bowl games, and it just seems to me like they're just betting opportunities, and half the time I think they're ways to just take money out of guys' pockets.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there with 40 bowl games. As years ago, the bowl games were more streamlined. There were some big-time bowl games, and there was maybe 20, 25 bowl games. Now there's 40 bowl games that are obviously dominated by advertising, by gambling, and by some of these teams that limped into the bowl. A lot of tips I have here in college football bowl games, but the first one is obviously do not play every game. There are certain games out there you just want to throw out right off the bat. You want to make sure that you handicap and do some sound fundamentals, and I'll give you some more tips. But to answer your question, my friend, advertising, television, and the flat-out feasting on these guys gambling is the way these bowl games are right now, and I don't know if I agree with it 100%.
Yeah, it just seems like when you look at before Christmas, I think there's like 12 bowl games before Christmas even comes around, and the bowl games that I used to watch on New Year's Day, some of them, the Cotton Bowl's on December the 29th now, and it seems to have diluted what I really thought was a special time for college football into kind of a feast for, 6-6 teams playing 6-5 teams playing 7-4 teams, and I just don't get it outside of the fact that, these games are set up so that they can continue to generate the interest in college football, I guess. But it just seems like it's a feast for bettors who are out there saying, oh, look, it's Notre Dame. I'm going to bet them without doing any research on a game. At this time of year, there's different factors that you have to look at. There's not the rivalries. You're playing on neutral fields. You're playing, in front of 10,000 people in the Gasparilla Bowl instead of your normal 30,000 or 40,000 fans. What kind of factors, JR, do you look at differently when it comes to college bowl games than you look at during the regular NCAA football season?
Well, that is a great point. And if I could give the listeners about 4 or 5 bulleted points, there's a lot of people out there that have different opinions on different way to be successful. Some of these are rock solid fundamentals, and basically you want to look for teams with motivation. Motivation is number one on my list. Basically, you want to avoid teams that have been limping into the end of the season, and you also want to avoid teams, believe it or not, that have been to the same bowl game for the last couple of years. Teams that go to that same bowl game, believe it or not, for the last couple of years are terrible against the spread props the next year that they play. You want to look for that. And you also want to look for a team that is inspired. Now, they have first or second year coaches with a young team that want to make some noise. You don't necessarily need a seasoned coach from a Power 5 conference that's laying a ton of points to a really motivated team. These Power 5 conferences want to be in those New Year's Day bowls. They are underachieving. They're basically going there. They're limping in there. They're trying to tell you the right things, and they'll do the prep conferences. But a big Power 5 team against a motivated under 5 team here, you want to go against that team. They limped into it. They want no business being there. Hey, they'll say all the right things, but laying 14, 15, 20 points is a joke, and some of these teams lose outright in these bowl games.
You know, you're making a really good statement there about how these you maybe can find teams that are motivated versus teams that aren't, which is, you know, if I go back years ago, it was one of those things where I had no idea who was motivated to play in the game. You know, you're looking at a Northern Illinois Duke game. You're looking at a Appalachian State Toledo Bowl game. How about Texas Tech South Florida? You know, which one of these teams is really motivated? And it seems to me like you have found a way to pick and choose, just using some general tactics, who to look at in these games.
Right. Another thing is location. Believe it or not, you want to look at teams from the Deep South. Believe it or not, Deep South teams have a tremendous advantage when they host teams from the North in these bowl games, believe it or not. I looked at all these ATS trends. I looked at, obviously, the way teams travel, but I found that Deep South teams have an advantage when hosting Northern teams. The other one you want to make sure is some of these statistics in the Pac-12 and the ACC, where they don't play defense. They're a weak defensive conference in the Pac-12 and the ACC. Some of those offensive stats will be mediocre against other conferences. So Pac-12 offensive juggernauts and ACC offensive juggernauts are not the way to go. They are mediocre in the other conferences. You want to make sure you dig down. You want to make sure you do your homework. And believe it or not, when you're betting your hard-earned money, there is no stone left unturned when you want to do these bowl games. You want to dig and you want to find things that put you on the right side.
Well, there's some great angles there, JR, man. I hope folks listening to the podcast go back and rewind that and write some of that stuff down. That's some really, really solid advice there. I think there's some bowl games out there this year that fit some of those molds. You're looking at a few games, I'm sure, out on pregame.com for your college bowl package or your college bowl offerings you have out there. What do you got for the listeners here on the podcast this week, JR?
Well, if you want to go to a nice bowl winner this weekend, I have a team that we're going to get value in. And I'm basically going to look at Colorado State minus 5.5 versus Marshall. Now, Colorado State, let me tell you, the listeners are going to think, what, JR? Colorado State went 0-6 against the spread the last 6 games in the regular season. That's right. Their defense sprung a couple leaks. They are not happy with the way they finished. And I don't want to think I'm a hypocrite here going against some of my stats and trends. But we're getting value with Colorado State because Marshall schedule was way weaker. I mean, unbelievably weaker compared to Colorado State. Colorado State played some big teams. They played them tough, and their schedule was much tougher. Now, they are well coached. Colorado State is a great team in the bowl here. They have a nice coach. They play defense. They don't turn the ball over. And I think if Colorado State would have hummed down the stretch, they would be 9, 10, 11-point favorites against the Marshall. Marshall's happy to be there, but they're going against an offensive-defensive juggernaut. You're going to lay 5.5 with the Colorado State Rams. They are a strong, I repeat, strong team. Now, Doc Holliday with Marshall can play and beat up some of the patsies, but Colorado State is not a patsy. And I love the Rams to send a message here. They're going to win this game going away. Colorado State smashes Marshall as my bowl play.
In the Gildan, New Mexico Bowl, for those of you that don't know what Gildan is, apparently they make underwear, sweatpants, T-shirts, and they sponsor the New Mexico Bowl. They're Colorado State at 7-5, going against Marshall at 7-5. Marshall, by the way, one of my favorite team names, the Thundering Herd. Apparently, JR says they're not going to stand a chance against the Colorado State Rams. That's a fat winner in NCAA football from J.R. O'Donnell of Red Zone Sports and Pregame.com. JR, how things going out there on pregame these days?
I'm doing well, my friend. I did well in the NFL this weekend. Obviously, there was no college as the Army Navy. I begged off of that. But you know what? Pregame.com is a transparent website. Let me tell you, I cannot stress enough about transparency because there has to be 1,000 websites with handicappers out there. Everyone posts records up there that are unbelievable. But I'll tell you what about pregame. There is no way that anybody does not have the records that are correct. When the games are released, pregame puts it up there. If you tell you you're 10-0, that's correct. If you tell you you're 0-10, that is correct. And I got a lot of things going at pregame.com. Love to have the listeners stop by. Look for J.R. O'Donnell at pregame.com.
J.R. O'Donnell and his NHL on fire run this season. JRO, from what I understand and just looking over there at pregame, you're number one in NHL right now.
Yeah, I'm number one in the NHL. I am 63.99 units, which is $100 and $200 and $300 better. I'm basically 65% in the NHL. And, you know, I love the football. I love the basketball. But there's some money to be made in hockey, obviously. This podcast is obviously generated for football. And believe me, I put and hang my hat on the NFL and college football. But right now I'm crushing in the NHL, 63.99 units, and I'm doing well and continue to do well on the ice.
Well, you know, in today's day and age, handicappers have to pretty much do every sport just to stay relevant all year long and stay in people's minds. I think that, you know, it's important for listeners to know that when a guy is doing really well in a particular sport, year after year, you should take a look at what he's doing in that particular sport. And I'm glad to hear you're doing so well there, JR. Folks, we'll be right back after a brief commercial here from OSGA.com.
The offshore betting industry is totally unregulated.
Where can you turn to make sure your money is safe offshore?
The Offshore Gaming Association, OSGA. Visit the Offshore Gaming Association at www.osga.com or call them toll-free 7 days a week at 877-OSGA-BET. That's 877-674-2238. Established in 1998, the OSGA has been the ultimate watchdog for the unregulated offshore betting industry. They have helped thousands of players find secure, reputable offshore wagering outlets and perform dispute resolution for hundreds of wronged players. Visit the Offshore Gaming Association at www.osga.com or call them toll-free at 877-OSGA-BET.
Folks, welcome back to Cast Your Bets. You can catch us every single week out on a really popular podcast site, blueberry.com. You can also find us on iTunes. Head to the iTunes store and you can pick us up there. You can find us out on OSGA.com. And you can also find this podcast with video stats and whatnot out on YouTube. Just take a look for OSGA Sports Betting, and you'll be able to find this there as well. Folks, every week I try to talk about a little bit about what's going on in the sportsbook industry, and it's bowl season, and traditionally sportsbooks have offered up all kinds of bowl specials, all kinds of bowl contests, but you know, it's so diluted anymore with all these bowl games that we're just not seeing that this year. Heritage Sports has a really nice $10,000 bowl contest they're running at this time for active customers. So get on board with Heritage Sports. You can find the information at OSGA.com on their contest. UWager is going to be running one only for the Big Six bowl games. So that's something uwager.eu will be offering a little later. But that's really about it. And if you go back a number of years, all these places ran one. Of course, you can always find all the information you need on the bonuses and specials at OSGA.com. And in fact, one of the free contests you can find for bowls is at OSGA. Just head on over to OSGA.com, click on the big banner at the top of the page, and you'll be able to access our college bowl contest where you can enter for free to win cash and sportsbook prizes. Folks, every week, JR brings the heat, brings the madness, brings it all with an NFL pick for everyone out there. JRO, it's a big weekend in pro football. The playoffs are coming. People are battling. I mean, we talked a little bit about the Jags. I'm also getting to be a fan of the Falcons again. The Carolina Panthers are hard to say no to. Who are you looking at this week in the NFL, man?
This week, I'm going to go to a marquee game with two quarterbacks that are on fire, and I'm going to look at Pittsburgh, New England. That's right, the AFC battle for home field advantage. That's right. They finally got it right, as this probably will decide the home field advantage. And I'm not going to play the side here, but I'm going to tell you, fellas, I'm going over 53, and this baby will go over 53 easy. Pittsburgh with Big Ben He put up a 500-yard game versus the Ravens. That's right, his third 500-yard game. And basically, Tom Brady will not be the Tom Brady versus those Miami Dolphins. Let me tell you, Gronk was suspended. Patriots walked through that game. Like I said, they didn't even get off the bus. But let me tell you about this game. 53 is the total, and I like this baby to sail over the total. Now, New England and Pittsburgh, last possession game. I can't tell you enough about Brady, who's going to get pumped up after a terrible, probably the worst performance of the season versus Miami. And Pittsburgh got it done, put up 30-plus, obviously, against the Ravens. And I think with everybody back, there's going to be a points spread festival here. Now, Shazier, that's right, has left a void in Tomlin's Steelers defense, which means Brady's going to exploit it a little bit. I am throwing the side out, but I'm going two-fisted. I'm jumping up and down, and Jimmy, you know I get excited about these games. I'm going over 53, Patriots, Steelers as my NFL hammer.
Dude, that's a sweet play because you never want to face a mad Tom Brady. He goes crazy when he gets bummed out or pissed off after a game where they just play like garbage and they lose terribly. And I've seen it time and time again. He comes out firing. So it's the New England Patriots. You know, they're 10-3. The Steelers are 11-2. It's interesting here because the Steelers control their own destiny at this point to get into the playoffs. Definitely a preview of the AFC Championship game. Same game as last year. You know, maybe you got a little revenge here because New England beat Pittsburgh last year in the AFC Championship game 36-17. You know, you got two super high-power offenses. New England's number 2, Pittsburgh's number 4. This is a fat play, man. 53 is not really a very big number for two offenses like this.
Absolutely. I think the defense obviously will show up a little bit, but you're right about Brady coming off a terrible performance. You're getting value here as he was intercepted twice. The Patriots only put up 20 against a terrible Miami team. They went through the motions, field goal festival in the beginning, but there's not going to be any going through the motions here. This is a battle for the AFC home team ledger here, and I think Pittsburgh with Big Ben, who is healthy, and I think Brady, who has a target now to get this game done. I'm looking at 33-31, 38-31. I'm looking at both teams going over the total. I'm playing it two-fisted. Do not play the under. Hammer the over.
Nice, man. So that JRO is taken over in the Patriots-Steelers game, which is the marquee game of the weekend. I'm actually looking forward to watching this one, but over seems fat. I'm going to click the button as soon as we get done here, and I'm going to be betting the over 53 on the Patriots-Steelers game this Sunday in a preview of the AFC Championship game. I like it, JR. I really enjoy this play a lot. I'm going to be clicking the button. I hope the listeners out there do too. You know, folks, every week I talk a little bit about what we hear on our phone lines and in our chat room. And recently we've been getting some complaints from guys about Bitcoin. And, you know, the sportsbooks went in, as JR says, with both fists on Bitcoin as a way to transfer money back and forth. They taught a lot of players how to use it. It's an odd currency. It's kind of like a virtual wallet. But unfortunately, the currency fluctuates crazy. You know, it's tripled in value in the last 30 days. It's out of hand. And in those times, it goes up and it goes down. And unfortunately, what happens if a player sends money to a sports book and it's up and it goes down by the time the sports book gets it and puts it in their account, they don't get as much money as they should. And they feel ripped off. And it's unfortunately the way the currency works. Flip side can happen, though, too. You can request a payout and you can get paid out at X amount of dollars per Bitcoin. It's worth more by the time you cash it out. Or you could sit on it and it goes up. I mean, in today's day and age, Bitcoin's worth ridiculous amounts of money for something that you really can't buy anything with, except you can play at your sports book with it, and it works great. You just have to realize out there that it fluctuates, and you can get it on both sides. So if you lose a couple of dollars when you send it to your sports book, you might get it back on the backside when you take it out. And it's unfortunate that many sports books don't spend the time to explain to players that this happens, and players just think it's a wallet, where really it's a currency, and it fluctuates. So as long as players keep in mind how this Bitcoin works, click on their buttons, move stuff from Bitcoin to cash as fast as they can, they won't see the fluctuations, they won't get hurt, and they won't see differences. But if they do, a sportsbook's not out there to rip you off for a few dollars on a Bitcoin transaction. They really aren't. But you may be able to bargain with them and get a free play out of them. And that's my advice for today. Folks, it's been another great podcast here with J.R. O'Donnell of Red Zone Sports and Pregame.com. JRO, it's bowl season. You're teeing up a few games out there. We're looking forward to seeing you out there on pregame.com. You got it loaded up?
Absolutely. I'm loaded up, obviously, for the bowl games. Best time of year. I'm going crazy, but I love to be crazy. If you're not busy this time of year and you're not doing it right, you're doing your customers a disservice. As I have hundreds of customers that count on me. I love being busy. I love doing the podcast. But let me tell you, if you're not busy now and you're not working 24/7 in the handicapping business, you're not doing something right.
Yeah, you're picking games like I used to, and you're getting killed because you just say, hey, Notre Dame's playing, or, ooh, Penn State's playing, and you just go for it because you like that team and you know they do well. JRO, I hope people find you over at pregame.com. I hope they find me at osga.com, and I hope they find this podcast out on Blueberry, osga.com, iTunes. Grab this baby, and you can also find us out on YouTube at OSGA Sports Betting, and we'll look forward to seeing you again here at Cast Your Bets.
You've been listening to Cast Your Bets, the Offshore Gaming Association podcast. Check in each week for more inside the sports gaming world. And don't forget to check us out on your favorite social media site and on our YouTube channel at OSGA Sports Betting. Thanks for listening.